Well, good day, everybody, and welcome to another Starin AV Meetup Coffee Break. The term AV Meetup comes from our local in-person events where we've taken folks from San Francisco to Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, and a lot of other markets out on boat trips and then shown them some working systems in the process. It's a lot of fun and gets us a chance to meet with our valued customers. AV Meetup on the web has two versions. There's the coffee break, where in under the time it takes to sip on a cup of joe, we cover application-driven topics. And then the second version is the workshop, and that goes deep into the subject over the course of an hour. So today is a coffee break. We're going to have a workshop for those of you who want to take a deeper dive into how to set up IPTV transport streaming systems, and we'll let you know when that's going to be. Note during today's presentation we've muted all the mics just in the interest of keeping the noise floor down. Doesn't mean you can't ask a question. So be sure to use the chat window in the questions pane, which a lot of you guys have already found, and we'll address it at the end. Make sure that we get all the questions answered by the end. Stay with us today to get a Starbucks gift card. So for those of you who have signed up for the session, we're going to need your email address if you haven't given it to us already. If you haven't, just enter it into the chat window and select Starin VM, which stands for Starin Bill Mullen, our CEO, as the recipient. Before we get started, I would like to announce Casey Barton as the winner of our music trivia, who was the first to correctly identify the Beatles' Polythene Pan as the lyrics and artist and song. So speaking of being attractively built, now to take you through the basics of IPTV transport streams, here's our technical marketing manager, Mr. Clay Stalka.
Well, thanks, Neil. It's not a compliment that I hear very often. And welcome to everybody. You know, just the other day we were all together with our Starin team at the headquarters in Chesterton. And we were discussing, among other things, how we can take the mystique out of streaming technologies for our valued partners. Well, even amongst our team of experts, it's amazing to feel the angst and the hesitation when discussing this misunderstood technology. The common vibe was that presenting streaming and supporting streaming technologies can be a nightmare waiting to happen. Perhaps this explains why so many of our partners are hesitant to embrace this fast-growing share right in our marketplace. You know, interestingly enough, most people feel that streaming is expensive. It requires lots of pricey equipment, and it needs highly skilled programmers and technicians to deploy. When discussing streaming, many think of movies and music distribution like, you know, Netflix and Pandora, and are quick to tell us that we don't have a need for streaming in what we do. Well, the cold, hard truth is that streaming is so misunderstood that many folks just shy away and can't imagine the opportunities just sitting here at our doorsteps. Yes, movies and music are a large part of the understood streaming world, and yes, there is a market that most of us don't have really any opportunities to take part in, except maybe as consumers of the services. So today let's focus on what we might not currently think of as streaming opportunities, and what market segments can be improved by offering streaming as our design platform rather than old-school forms of AV distribution. Firstly, IPTV. Well, you can think of this as a much simpler and more efficient CCTV or MATV infrastructure. It uses the existing network, so there's no RG6 to run, no modulators, no distribution amps, no splitters, no complicated head end, you know, no nothing. This is just an easy entry into the transport stream world, and just about every one of us has customers that need this very service. Then there's digital signage. In case where a signage system is comprised of many displays, with more and more high-definition motion graphics and video content, do you really need to deal with extenders, pulling cables, worrying about home runs and the like? Why not just distribute the content across the existing network? How about distance learning? It's a great way to distribute live content and video on demand across campuses and even across the country. Are you really thinking of pulling cable across that student parking lot? Of course not. We have remote event viewing. You know, in this society, it's tough to get people together. They can be a part of an event by viewing an HD stream from wherever they are, with no proprietary hardware, no codecs to buy, and it can coincide with the delivery you're already needing to show at the event on displays in the facility or across the campus. So we can offer on-demand viewing of recorded content. We can provide a cost-effective delivery of absolutely any content from anywhere with a network connection to any other place with network connectivity without our own cables or pathways. And you can monitor and control devices across these network connections at the same time if you need to. Now, this is what I call transport streaming. Now, let's dismiss the demons right here and right now. This is a simple process that only requires three things. An encoder. Well, this could be a JVC streaming-enabled camcorder, a streaming-capable video production system like, say, a TriCaster, or any audio and video source connected right to a streaming encoder. It could even be software on your computer. We need a broadband network. You know, any enterprise network, at least these days, is a gigabit or more. So LANs are easy. WANs, or wide area networks, work for streaming too. Although they might not support the very best quality 4K video yet, even a WAN like the public internet can support some level of decent quality streaming. And you need a decoder. The decoder can be a software media player like VLC, Windows Media Player, QuickTime Player. It can also be a dedicated appliance for the very best reproduction of high-resolution displays and video walls. The encoder is where you determine the stream's format and the protocol it uses for the stream. Now let's take just a moment to look at the various options. First, unicast. Unicasting is simply sending packets from one source to one destination. For example, from one web server to one or each person viewing a page on a web browser. What may be new to you is the idea that one encoder can send video via unicast to many viewers. Data or video can be sent via UDP or TCP with RTP and RTSP and can be sent via unicast. So in short, unicast is a method, not a protocol. Then we have multicast. Multicasting is sending data from a sender to multiple receivers where each receiver signals that they want to receive the data. Now, this is different from unicasting and different from broadcasting where everyone gets the data whether they want it or not. Notice that you normally have a one-way connection, thereby ruling out TCP. Yeah, that's right. Multicast is done via UDP. There are methods in use where a receiver can signal a sender that's received a bad packet using a different reverse channel that's called reliable multicast, but that has little value for live video transmission. Now we have TCP. It seems everyone's heard of TCP over IP. You probably know that IP stands for Internet Protocol. The TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol. Here's the deal. To ensure a packet arrives without errors, the sender of the packet keeps an extra copy and waits for the receiver to say, "I got it okay." Now, if the sender hears from the receiver, the sender can discard that extra copy. If the receiver says, "I didn't get it," or says nothing at all after a while, the sender resends it. As you can see, this makes for reliable delivery, but it takes time. It also adds a great deal of overhead because there's dialogue between the sender and the receiver. Practically all email, web pages, and other internet traffic is sent using TCP over IP. TCP is a key reason why your web traffic or email slows down, but it doesn't break. When there's too much traffic, your packets can be discarded or lost somewhere, but you don't worry. Without even knowing it, your packets are being resent until they finally get through. And you thought you just had a good connection. As an analogy, let's say TCP is like a telephone call. If you didn't hear what the other person said, you just say, "What?" Next we have UDP. UDP stands for User Datagram Protocol. It's sometimes called send and pray because there's no dialogue between the sender and the receiver. If the receiver doesn't get the packet, the sender will never know. Well, when the heck would I want that, you might ask? Well, UDP is very efficient when there's little chance of errors, like in your LAN, or when TCP would provide too late of a delivery. All broadcast video is sent via UDP. Hey, we're sending live video, right? If I send you video frame 1, 2, 3, ad infinitum, and you display the video frames in real time as you receive them, and you didn't get, say, frame 500, what would you do with the new frame 500 if I resent it to you? Are you going to display it after frame 1000? That wouldn't look too good now, would it? Video is normally sent via UDP, but there's trouble with UDP nowadays. Most corporate firewalls block all UDP packets, making it impossible for streaming video to reach the desktops. Well, this is done to prevent hackers from getting access to the network, and it also sometimes is done to prevent excessive use of bandwidth. We'll get more bandwidth detail in a little bit here. Another analogy is, remember, TCP is like a full duplex two-way communication system, while UDP is like a public address system. If you didn't hear what was announced, you can't hear it again. Next we have RTP. RTP stands for Real-Time Transport Protocol. It's normally sent via UDP. It doesn't ensure real time, but it's a protocol that enhances the control and the synchronization of real-time stuff like streaming video. Now, here's where it gets real interesting. With mpeg 1 and mpeg 2, RTP was unnecessary because mpeg itself provides synchronization. Like so many standards, there are several ways to implement it. For example, you can split apart the mpeg 1 stream and send audio on one IP address and video on another, or you can send both audio and video on the same address. RTP provides timestamps that will provide audio and video sync. Now, in the case of mpeg 4 that we typically use in high definition, the only meaningful way to send audio and video is via RTP, because there's nothing like a mpeg 1 system stream or an mpeg 2 transport stream. In other words, for mpeg 4, AV sync is provided via RTP. So You could look at it like RTP is an orchestra leader, keeping all the musicians in sync. Now we have RTSP. RTSP stands for Real-Time Streaming Protocol. RTSP is a control protocol, not to be confused with IP, TCP, or UDP. However, RTP and RTSP are linked. You could find RTP without RTSP, but you could never find RTSP without RTP. A good way to position RTSP in your mind is to think of it the same way you think of HTTP and FTP. You know, if you want to see a web page, you'll enter http:// If you want to view a video player in a player, you'll enter RTSP:// This is only true for unicast streams, where each viewer receives their own stream from the server. RTSP is never used for multicast. So RTSP is kind of like a touch-tone telephone versus the old rotary dial telephone. It's merely a method of signaling. Next we have HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And it's often confused with Hypertext Markup Language, or HTML. Its description is way beyond the scope of my presentation, and on the surface you might seem like it's out of place here. However, because virtually all firewalls allow the default HTTP port, that's port 80, to pass, streaming video can be sent via HTTP tunneling. There's a severe penalty, though, since HTTP is sent via TCP, which increases the overhead, as we said before, by some 30%, and it greatly magnifies the delay. Now, a network is kind of like a garden hose in that you can't pass the same amount of water from a garden hose as you could with a fire hose. Every data transfer of any kind requires some bandwidth, of course, and streaming is no different. People think that streaming requires a lot more. Well, we can ask for it, but we don't require it. It depends on what you're streaming and how you're streaming it. What's the viewing platform? Well, if the display is a huge video wall, you need a better quality, higher resolution signal. You'll need much more bandwidth. If you're streaming to a small window on a web page, say, then, well, not so much. If you're sending out multiple streams to accommodate many different viewing platforms at the same time, called transcoding, then you'll need bandwidth for each individual stream. Now you're getting it. It's not really so complex at all. It's just a bunch of decisions up front to determine what the end user needs. Now, you'll have to engage with IT folks to make sure the bandwidth available for streaming provides the quality delivery that the end user expects. A stream decoder is hardware or software that can receive unicast, multicast, or broadcast streams. The main difference is in processing power. Again, the quality of the stream determines a lot about the processing required to decode and display the image. If you're displaying on a window on a web page or a computer, a media player software will do fine. If you're displaying high-resolution video on a large screen display, or perhaps multiple windows of high-res video on a video wall, then you'll need the processing power of a really good decoder appliance to do all the heavy lifting. People generally forget that there's always a trade-off. Heavy processing means higher latency. In some cases of remote viewing, it really doesn't matter. But in cases where latency matters and high quality matters, then there's no acceptable substitute for a standalone video encoder or decoder appliance. Well, here at Starin, we offer solutions that provide you with high-quality solutions for distributing video and audio over the network with full application support and technical assistance both before and after the sale. We represent solutions from Clear One called View and View Pro encoder and decoder products. We offer solutions from AdTech Digital, including broadcast-grade encoders and decoders. Now, all these products offer the industry's very best in quality with selections that are cost-effective in their category. We also offer the perpetual license Wowza Streaming Engine Pro, where you can host your own streaming server with no recurring monthly or yearly costs. Now, you'll need to know that HD-Base-T, Crestron Digital Media, Signal Extender Solutions, and some other, so-called streaming platforms require that you have dedicated category cabling. IPTV transport streams live on the existing network, and you don't have to pull or pay for any cable. You'll be glad when you have to get video from floor to floor in a high-rise building or across a highway. So remember, there's no free lunch, and you really do get what you pay for. So when your customer says, "I'm just going to buy the $300 encoder," you'll know exactly what to tell them. I hope this coffee break has been helpful in helping your understanding of IPTV transport streaming and associated technologies. If you have further questions or you require assistance with network configurations, please contact your Starin representative. Neil?
There may not be any free lunch, but with Starin there is free coffee. So remember, you'll be receiving a Starbucks gift card because we want our next AV, well, we want your next coffee break to be on us. And we'll throw in the information and the knowledge for free. You're also going to receive a link to a recording of this webinar so you can share with your colleagues who couldn't join us, or others that you think might be interested in it. Also, we'll be letting you know when our first workshops are on IPTV transport streaming. I want to show you guys a schedule of our upcoming AV meetups and AV meetup workshops. Remember, the workshops go in depth into the subject over the course of an hour, and those are on the left-hand side of your screen, so you can see the upcoming schedule for the workshops. And our AV Meetup coffee breaks, which you just had today here, we give you an overview of a topic over 20 minutes. So you see what's coming up in April and May. I'd like to get to the questions here. In just a moment, so hold on a second. The first one is, what components are in an IPTV system? Calais.
The components required are some sort of an encoder, software or hardware, the network, whether it's a LAN or a wide area network, and some kind of a decoder, either hardware or software. Obviously, you need a source device and a destination device, such as a camera or a Blu-ray player or what have you for the front end, and you need some sort of display or a website or whatever to display the output. But really, the inherent components in the stream are just encoder, network, and decoder. As far as we are concerned, in the AV world, it's a hardware or software encoder and a hardware or software decoder.
Excellent. I'm waiting for more questions for everybody to get their thoughts together and add some more questions in. I want to ask everybody online something here. Some of you have probably seen our workshops with Professor Phil Hippensteel, and the response to those have been so incredible. I want to ask you guys a question. Would you want to have an in-depth 2 to 3 day advanced live training session on AV over IP? You'd attend a meeting location to learn these network principles with practical applications, including setting routers, getting streaming encoders, video conferencing, collaboration sharing, and working on the network. And it would cost about $300 per attendee per day, and you'd have Professor Phil in person as your instructor. And we here at Stern, of course, we'd be appealing to your management to make you a company with AV over IP trained professionals. These sessions would also be held in locations across the country this summer. So, here's where you come in. If you think you'd like this and your company or you would fund the training, please write yes in the chat box. And that way we can start scheduling. So I meant to ask that in the beginning and I didn't, so please give it some thought, see if this is something you'd be interested in. This will really help us in terms of scheduling and determining what metro areas we can fit in. And yes, people are already saying that they would be interested. I appreciate it, and keep that input coming. Here's another question for Clay. For DVD-based playing, where does HDCP fit in the puzzle?
Well, that's a tough question because all manufacturers, as you probably know, handle their key exchange of HDCP quite differently. In order to be compliant with the HDCP consortium, it's important that everything is licensed on the key exchange side. So most of the, if not, I should say all, for all intents and purposes, of the premium manufacturers of streaming encoders do just that. Not unlike a high-quality HDMI switcher or distribution product. Those products have key exchange built in. They pay licensing and they are able to do the proper handshake for the copy protection to pass through unencumbered. And as I said, they pay for that, and hence, you know, the price of the product is a bit more expensive than stuff you might find on eBay or whatever. But the reality is, in streaming, most of the prime manufacturers of commercial grade products are handling things identically. So that when you plug a Blu-ray player into an encoder like the Clear One View Pro, as an example, which I use, or an AdTech, that HDCP handshake occurs without you even knowing it, and the data passes through, and the video is seen on the other end without a problem.
Gotcha. Will the network need to be multicast enabled, and what problems might we expect with existing networks?
Well, the truth of that is that most all networks today, modern networks with modern hardware, already are capable in enabling multicast signals. But no, it doesn't have to be. Again, like I said in my presentation, you determine what you need to accomplish in order to help determine, you know, how you're going to deliver it. In fact, the way we're seeing streaming today, much of the live streaming is done, you know, through the web browser. In that type of thing, on WANs, you don't need to worry about multicasting because you can unicast to the server that is going to bring the window up in your browser on a web page. So that's a non-issue. When you're distributing to something like, say, digital signage or perhaps a video wall, well, there, again, you're probably using point-to-point. It's highly unlikely that you're going to have a lot of digital signage that is all showing exactly the same thing. There are cases, however, where you would need to show the same thing to many displays. And then it's a lot better to use multicast because it uses a lot less bandwidth than to do an individual unicast to each display. So the answer would be yes, in some cases you'll want to employ multicast. But not to worry because most networks today are already multicast enabled.
Thank you, Clay. There's another question. Can we stream H.264 HD video?
Well, it depends on the format. H.264, which is the common format for which high-definition video is delivered, is available and absolutely works with products like the Clear One View Pro that I mentioned before and the AdTech encoders. So that would be yes. However, the HEVC version of that codec is not yet fully supported. And that would be what we would use for 4K and beyond. We're beginning to see some of that trickle into the industry, but it's not yet widely accepted. But then again, you know, how many times are we going to really need to employ that as of today? For the future, that'll all be worked out. Oh, and I probably should interject at this point that the future is easy with these kind of products, because even though they're appliances, a lot of cases here, they are software based. So it's very easy to upgrade your firmware. So it's not a big headache later on if you get something now and then you need HEVC for 4K. That's easy. You just upgrade the firmware when it's available and you're done. You don't need to like throw out a piece of hardware and buy something new. So it's very functional and very, very future-proof, if you will.
There was a question about H.265 HEVC. Are there encoders, decoders coming out at reasonable price points? And as we saw at NAB, AdTech will have an H.265 HEVC encoder, decoder coming out soon. We don't yet know the price point, though. Another question is, does Steren do hosting for multicasting of a unicast signal? Is this through Wowza?
Yes. The offering that we have from Wowza is the perpetual license of the streaming engine. It's a very, very nice service that you can host yourself either at a dealer level and provide to your customers, or to sell the software to a customer who could host it either at a data center or on-premise. And the beauty of that type of situation is that you can do all the transcoding and provide all the formats that are needed for whoever it is that you need on the other side, you know, whoever it is you're trying to send to. So all that is available through Wowza Streaming Pro and is readily available from us. Of course, you know, it's also available as a pay-as-you-go direct through Wowza, but of course our objective here is to provide an end-to-end solution that allows each person or each end user facility to have control over all their own materials.
Terrific. Well, hopefully everybody's all jacked up on caffeine and knowledge. And as always, we appreciate you joining us. These have been a tremendous success, and we owe it all to you. So we'll see you next time on the next AV Meetup Workshop or the AV Meetup Coffee Break from Steren. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great day, everybody.